Hello and welcome to the Fit for Life podcast with your host, Alan Fitton. In this podcast, I will be covering fitness-related subjects and my experiences to do with nutrition, building muscle and weight loss to name a few, and how, above all, to keep fit for life.
So all of us, me and my other colleagues, including Gabriel Amara, who I played, they captured all of us, threw us in the truck, and I said to the guy, "What have we done?" All of a sudden, I got a gun on my face. This guy just hit me with the butt of the gun and another slap and said, "Don't ask question." And these guys, they don't talk. They were all over 6 foot, a big military guy. They were security to this guy. So what happened, the guy who was in the convoy was a general, late general. He also died in Sierra Leone. It's called, he was a chief of staff of the Nigerian army, General Maxwell Kobe. You can Google him up. And I wrote about him in the book. So he was in charge of the war. So he is the most feared general in West Africa at that time. The rebels fear him. Our national army fear him because he had no mess around.
Right.
So the president left every security thing with him. So he thought we were up to no good. So that's why he sent his men to come and capture us. So where did they take us? To the military prison, which is just down the road where I was, close to Tembet, where I was born. Right. So I remember when we got there, and I said, how much bad luck can I get? Now I've qualified, got a week to go, and here I am being captured, me and Gabriel. But when we got there, what was very even bad at that time, was confusing, is one of the soldiers came out. They have all these helmets on their head, and then they have dark glass, so you can't see who these people are. So one of them grabbed me, dragged me out, and then there was a gun behind me, AK-47. This guy I could feel the barrel of the gun resting on my back.
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking, why are they treating me different? And then on the corner of my eyes, I could see my colleagues who were going into the prison. But for me, the guy was pushing me somewhere else. At the back of the prison, he was pushing me with the gun to go. We didn't say anything. So in my head, I quickly think, he's going to shoot me because I was the one who was clowning with the general.
Yeah.
So I have come to the, to acknowledge that, okay, acceptance that
you can be killed.
I'm going to be killed. This is it for me. And it was all gone. I told you, I was really scared. That was the first time I was really scared because now I've seen my friend being shot and I've done everything. So I quickly, some things are like second, but they felt like minutes because everything, like you said, goes in slow motion. I could think clearly. I could quickly think. I could see my mom. I could see my sisters. And I shut my eyes for a very short time while this guy was pushing me. And I prayed to God and said, God, accept me to heaven. Forgive me for what I've done. Whatever happened, I'm going to miss my mom. And I think what my mom is going to feel if they tell her that I have been killed.
Yeah.
And maybe she will never see my body again, obviously. They won't take you to your family. They just dump you in some mass grave. And I also quickly remember the look on my mom's face, the pain she was going through when Alimami was killed. And that made me feel really, really bad. My legs went jelly, everything again, and I felt so drained. And for the first time, I actually felt really sorry for myself. But then after that, the last person I thought about was Halimami. So I think I look into the heavens, this guy is pushing me and I'm trying to slow him down and I'm walking slowly to try and get my thought together to really prepare myself for my last time. And I'm looking around and say, wow, this is the last time I'm going to leave. I might as well just make the most of this, just slow things down. And I thought about Halimami and then I smile. I find myself smiling not because I wanted to smile. For whatever reason, I just felt joyful again. The relief of the fear of death at that minute when I thought about Halimami completely left my soul. It's almost like I was soulless, because you've accepted that you're going to die. There's nothing else. Nobody can save you in this situation.
Yeah.
And so I was there thinking to myself, yes, how proud Halimami will be to see him in heaven. I said, I can't wait to meet him. That's the way my head started thinking. So that's got me not too scared anymore. And then all of a sudden, I had somebody call my name. The guy was whispering. He said, PJ. So, when this kind of thing happened, like I said, everything was in slow motion. I thought, am I dreaming? Is this what is going on with me? I'm pretty sure in my head I'm not going mentally disturbed here. So I heard the person said, PJ. And then I didn't respond. And I stopped. I'm looking back, but the gun was still behind me. And this time we're walking slowly towards the back of the military prison. And then he shouted again. He said, PJ, it's me, Julius. So when he said Julius, and I remember who Julius was. Julius was a Nigerian soldier. When they brought them in after they overthrew the military and the rebels, so they brought them as security. Military security, they were like in the MP military police, they call them, and special security force. So Julius walked to the tennis court, introduced himself, because that's what the good soldiers do. To get information, you have to be friends with the locals.
Right, I see.
So he came and we introduced ourselves, and I introduced myself. For whatever reason, this guy just loved me.
Right.
He just liked me. We liked each other because he does taekwondo, I does martial arts. So, and then we started training after work. He would come. He was a huge guy, very muscular, because they got to be like that to be in that force. And we would do martial arts. And then he said, I love tennis. And we start doing tennis. And then in the rainy season, we start doing table tennis inside the club.
Yeah.
So he become like my brother. So because of him, the beating stopped from the soldiers. They weren't beating us anymore. And he was always there to make sure that we're safe. So thankfully, he was one of the guys they sent to arrest us. So that's why he asked his colleague to pull me aside so that they can let me go.
Wow.
So Julius said to me, he said, PJ, I said, I never want to see you again. I'm sorry. This is really bad. You have to go. The boss man is not happy. Unfortunately for my other colleagues, they spent 21 days in a military prison with so much, punishment, and then they went through so much struggle, hunger, starvation. But I find myself again very lucky because Julius, as a friend, was there, to help me out. So, and then I escaped. So that happened on the 13th of December, which was a Sunday, so a week before I left. So, but anyway, and then a few days after that, the Saturday, which was the 19th of December 1998, I remember going to the National Stadium and collect my allowances, which was over $250.
Wow.
And also my national tracksuits. So, and then on the way, I decided to pass to my dad and see him to say goodbye, that I was going to, play tennis. So when I got there to his house, my dad was lying, and as usual, when he's not working. So I went in and we sat down talking, and I said to my dad, Dad, I'm going to Ghana tomorrow. And you would have thought that I told my dad I've just landed from the moon, because the shock and the look on his face, and why are you going to Ghana? I said, well, Dad, I'm going to play tennis. And he was confused. So, but what I did was I had a $50 note, which I've saved for my dad. So I took the $50 note and I opened his hand and I put the $50 note on his hand. And I can tell you, for the first time when I told my dad how much the $50 was in our currency, and my dad, first and the last time, he actually gave me a hug.
Wow.
And he thanked me very much, and then he prayed for me. And like I always said, I was very certain that my dad wasn't going to cut my fingers for playing the rich white man sport. So
must have been pretty humbling as well, from obviously hearing in the past from his said to you, saying that he wouldn't want you to follow that as a career path because he didn't think it would amount to anything.
Yeah.
But then from your success, you've gone, look what I've done, look what I've achieved, Yeah.
I think what my dad did for me is when he told me he would cut my fingers if I touch tennis, is that I become very defiant. And tennis is a very defiant sport. It doesn't matter what your opponent throws at you. You got to be mentally, because unlike football and other sport or team sport where you can talk to each other, they can give you instruction, your coach can be on the side shouting information on what to do.
Yeah.
In tennis, coaches are not allowed to talk to you unless if you're playing in the Davis Cup. So you got to be able to talk to yourself and convince yourself, motivate yourself, and push yourself, even when the odds are against you. So when my dad said that to me, I said, I want to prove to my dad that tennis is not just for a rich white man. And also, I knew if I start making money out of it, I will help my dad.
Yeah.
Because he was poor. So that $50 was more than 6 months of his salary.
Wow.
So he was really excited, and I was quite happy. In fact, those were some of my happiest memory, to see that my dad come to terms that I love tennis, and he could just give me the moral support. Not that I wanted him to, but get a racket for me, which of course he didn't have the money. I just wanted him to understand this is what I want to do. And like I said before to you, Alan, is to be fair to my dad, he didn't want me, to end up, like him,
No.
working a month, all this hard work, and then ending up with less than 10 quid a month.
Yeah, I understand.
So he wanted me to be a doctor.
He went to the best for you, didn't he?
Yeah.
I get it.
So that was the happy memory with me and my dad. And then so the following day, on the 20th of December 1998, I found myself and my colleague and my coach traveling, crossing the Atlantic Ocean, to the airport, which is called the Lunge Airport, and then in Freetown. So I was super excited for the first time for me to start traveling in a plane, because as a child as well, the reason why Sierra Leone is also called Sierra Leone, it was a French Portuguese guy, Pedro de Sintra, who gave the modern name to Sierra Leone, which was Sierra da Leoa. So when he landed in Freetown, and in the ship, the mountains, they actually shaped like a lion. You can see the tail, the body, and the head.
Oh, right.
So that's why he named the country modern name Sierra Leone, so which means the Lion Mountain.
Yeah.
So so I could remember the airport is way, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean there. So me growing up in the mountain, every time I would look at the plane as a kid, the landing, the taking off, landing, and you keep thinking, I can't wait for the day I'll be in one of these, to travel.
Yeah, of course.
And so the 20th of December, I find myself those early child dream when we're up the mountain at night, you see those flight landing, and now, this is reality, and all the hard work and the pain, the struggle, the war, all these sort of things, and losing Alimami as well, now it's paid off. And I could remember it like it happened yesterday, getting into that airport. And in my book, I mentioned as well, when we got to the airport, there was a trouble because we got there on the 20th of December. All the flights have been canceled.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, so including our flight as well. So luckily, there was another Air Ivory Coast flight, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ivory Coast. So there, a plane turned up, but my coach was so well known at the airport, and he knows all the top guys there. So he went and told them, say, look, I got 2 kids here, and we're going for the international tournament to represent the country. If we don't get in the next flight, we're going to miss that, and Sierra Leone is going to be in trouble. So what they did was, I think it was a 5 or 6 seat left in the flight. So they managed to get 3 of us. And so they changed our ticket really quick, because the manager at the airport knew us and knew that we were going to play for Sierra Leone. So that was another obstacle we bumped into at the airport. But finally, I find myself, climbing into the flight for the first time. What a relief. And then the plane took off. For the first time, I was leaving my country to go international tournament. So, yeah, it worked out very well. And we got to Ghana. We slept in Accra. For the first time, I described it. I'm sleeping in a country where I couldn't hear a bomb sound, a gunshot. And, it was almost like a dream.
Yeah.
You're somewhere else. But then I played my first tournament in Ghana, which started on the 27th of December, because that was after Boxing Day. Because Christmas Day, they did a big party for us. So all the country kids, kids from Great Britain, kids from Austria, Egypt, everywhere in Africa, and kids from Israel as well. Because I can remember I played against an Israeli kid in the second and third leg. And so, it was good to see all the other African kids, the standard of tennis. And luckily for me, my first match I played, I won 6-love. I beat a kid from Niger. And then I went my second round. I had to play the number 3 seed, who was a kid from Mali called Tamba Samasa, who was a really good player.
Right.
And he had a huge serve like myself. But the experience was really good in Ghana. So, and we left. Finished Ghana. We went to Togo, which is another country. And we played in Togo. Same thing. Whilst we were there, something happened because Freetown was attacked again. So, and I remember playing against the Israeli kid, and I was losing, but looking at my coach to see what help he could give me. And he was so glued to his radio, he wouldn't even move. And then when I changed over, came towards him, and Coach, you okay? And he said to me, I think everyone in the city has died. Because on the news, they said Freetown has been attacked, and there's over 10,000 people being killed in a few days. and so he couldn't get through to his family. So we knew it was bad because the rebels and the National Army, they were launching an attack again to take over the country.
But yeah.
So we went to Togo. Well, we couldn't finish very well because the tournament just become, pointless at that time because my parent didn't have phone, so I didn't know what was happening. But then we end up continue because our coach called a meeting. Do you guys want to play? So well, we're here. We can't go back to Sierra Leone because they've shut the country down. So we might as well just use this opportunity to keep playing. So we end up, the third leg was in Nigeria.
Right.
And so we went to Nigeria. We played, won some couple of games, but again, the focus level was difficult. But what I could remember, in fact, in Togo was every television you turn was dominated by the Sierra Leone news, the rebel war. And because every other nation and kids knew we're from Sierra Leone, I could remember in Togo when January 6, 1999 is when they attack Freetown. One of the worst attack when they kill all those, thousands of people. And a lot of the other kids from different county, they came around us, they formed a circle, and they were all saying, "No, don't worry, you guys gonna be okay." And people share our emotions, and it was really sad, but really good to see the bond of the human spirit as well. Like, people don't even have to say a lot; they just come around and give us a hug and show that they're there for us. So I thought that was really good. And that's why, in fact, I so embraced tennis in such a way, because tennis did a lot of good for me. Like, what happened with Julius and me being able to make the first $250 plus, ever somebody in my family to earn that kind of money, and able to use $150, which I gave to my mom for 6 months feeding. And then I gave my dad $50, and then I kept some for myself to travel, and I was able to pay my own school fee and stuff. So it was really good. But then when we finished in Nigeria, the tournament, we couldn't go back to Sierra Leone, so we ended up becoming a refugee in Ghana. So we were there.
Wow.
Yeah, we were in Ghana for about 8 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And so we didn't get back to Sierra Leone until March, after my birthday. And so we have to fly to Guinea, Conakry from Ghana. We got a flight there, and then one night we slept, and then my colleague, my teammate, he stayed in Guinea because his dad was working for the government. So they've managed to get over to Guinea, and they had a house there. So for me, I didn't have that. My family was back in Sierra Leone. So my coach wanted to go see his family. And I would have preferred to stay in Guinea, but he wanted, I got to be home. So you got to hand over me back to my family and stuff. And anyway, so we went back, me and him. We managed to get us in one of those cargo little plane with the propeller.
Yeah.
So I could remember sitting in this little thing, and I could barely see where my coach was because there was load in between on the aisle and everywhere. And when that thing took off, I never even knew we were going to get in the air because it was so noisy and so scary. And 25 minutes later, we flew from Guinea, Conakry, which is the capital city, Conakry, and to Freetown. And I remember landing, all you can see is smoke in the city, houses still on fire and smoke, and only military guys. And the airport, there was nobody there. It was completely empty. So me and my coach, and we just walked through. Nobody even checked us. The few people who were there, you can see the grief and hunger and starvation, and what happened within those attacks in Freetown was really bad. And we couldn't even get any other thing, so they ordered a helicopter for us, because you can either go by the ferry or local boat or take the helicopter, which is a 12 minutes, which is the worst flights. I hate them helicopters.
Okay.
And well, it was the only means. And so one of the things my coach did was, so me and him in this helicopter with two other guys, the pilot flying the helicopter with his co-pilot or whatever. And I remember he asked them if they can just pass towards the city, because they usually fly to the ocean and then into a place which is the Aberdeen Beach. That's where they will land, and then we get a car from there. So the pilot went to the middle of the city, and all you can see is just all the main, big government building in fire. Nobody on the streets. Everybody was home. And so we landed, and then coach said goodbye to me. We took two different taxis because he was going to towards the center of the city. I was going towards the coast. to the mountain, and so we were both going two different directions.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in the taxi this driver was trying to have conversation with me, and I could even speak from what I could see. And you could still see another sad thing is vultures are everywhere, because the reason why we have so much vulture is people who have been explored, their body parts is everywhere. So the vultures, they come to pick this up. And they had military checkpoints everywhere. Nigerian soldiers were everywhere. And so thankfully for me, because I had still had my tracksuit on and my passport, you can see. In fact, I didn't even have passport that first trip. I had something called emergency travel certificates.
Right.
It's like a paper kind of documents where but the guys can see I've just come from Nigeria. So they just wave me past. I say, I've just come from tennis. And there was a checkpoint every 100, 200 meters, because then the rebels were still threatening to come back and attack the city. So, and I still didn't know whether my parents, siblings, whether anyone was alive, because there was no communication between me and them. But when I took the taxi all the way to Hill Station, all you can see on the road is vultures, ammo shells, the shells from the bullets, and blasts of bullets, and then buildings that I'm familiar with has been burnt down or bombed. And
so you're automatically going to be thinking the worst case scenario, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because I mean, just
I was really thinking the worst, because it's like even the people on the road that I saw close to my area that I identify, you could see how people have lost weight. You know, those 3 months between January was the attack, and then February, March, there was no food. The whole country, every of the foreign people have left, you know, so we were just abandoned, you know, in Sierra Leone. And I remember getting to Hill Station, coming off the car, saw my sister, saw my coach, everybody. In fact, I was crying and laughing at the same time, because my sisters, they all got big head, lost weight. You can count everybody's bone, really? You know, and there was no food. It was really bad, the situation in Sierra Leone. So thankfully I had some money with me, because I did got some money from a guy in Nigeria, and then we got some money from the sport director who passed away a few years ago, and he looked after us when we were there. He paid for everything. We got 3 meals a day. We got training program, and then we also got a hotel sometimes, and they will bring us back to the sport college. So the Ghanaians really took very good care of us. And then whilst I was in Ghana, and the national coach met me one evening, and he said, you know, you guys are playing good tennis. I went to university in Sierra Leone, and how do you guys manage to play tennis with all the trouble? I said, well, you know, when they start fighting, we stop. When they stop, we get on with our lives. And then he said, look, if you ever consider to come here and continue your tennis and education, count on me. I will look after you. So that's, So when I went back to Sierra Leone, I noticed things were really bad. And so I decided, after helping my family to get some food and spend all the money that I had, you know, so I decided, you know, I need to leave. And my coach said to me, it's better you leave, go to Ghana, find your way there, and then those people will help you. So, and the guy, they gave me a few years of scholarship. That's how I ended up back in Ghana and training. And, you know, so here I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, I think, you know, listeners can't comprehend, you know, not only being away from your country to obviously to play your sport, but then having no method of contact at all to check that your loved ones are okay or anything like that. It must have been. Yes,
it was very difficult, because, like I said, I love my mom and I love my siblings and my dad. And when you don't have, my dad was an electrician who. His main job was fixing telephone and stuff like that, but he never had one in his life, because we never had electricity in the house when I lived with him. So, not knowing where your family is, and then when you look at the TV, all you see is people being killed. You see, and then you can, that's my area. Oh, that's where my dad live. Oh, that's where my auntie live. And this is the stadium. In fact, half of the population in the city went to the stadium. That's where they were seeking refuge. And then you see thousands and thousands of people, kids crying, and then how they're scared of the missile flying and exploding. And then you can see your own city where you grew up just turning upside down through destruction. I think for me that was some of the worst, memory I had when I was abroad. So even though I had the opportunity to go compete in tennis, at the same time I was going through emotional torturing, and I said to me I'd rather be home with my parents and siblings, and knowing what is happening. If we all have to die, we die there. I don't want to be in Ghana or somewhere,
Yeah.
whilst they are struggling. So it was that kind of feeling. But when I went back home, and then coach said, we'll be okay here, my mom and sisters, they were quite happy for me to leave. And I make sure that they got enough food. And so all the allowance and money that I got was good enough to buy food and whatever we can find.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it was, in the end, it was quite good. But again, thanks to tennis and thanks to my resilience and determination.
Yeah. It saved your life.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yeah.
Main quote of the book. So you had your period in Ghana there. So I'm guessing you continued to compete throughout that. And then obviously eventually you turned into being a coach yourself. Do you want to do it?
Yeah. So I spent some time in Ghana. I went back. Whilst we were there as a refugee, in fact, not as a refugee, the first week we went there, I met with a guy called Coach Noah. Okay, yeah. So in Ghana, I met Coach Noah, and he realized that I love bread, and they have very good big bread in Ghana. So I started. He started bringing me bread, and that's how we become friends. I was probably very likable in the camp because I was very high energetic, and coach said he realized that I was very noisy because I was enjoying myself and stuff like that. And so it was really good. So when I went back, I struggled to get back to Ghana. In fact, it should have taken me about an hour in a flight, but I didn't have the money and things, so I have to go by road. And through in that, traveling by road, I nearly get killed in Liberia because Charles Taylor was still the president, and they didn't like Sierra Leoneans going to Liberia because there was a tension between Liberia and Sierra Leone because the war started in Liberia and stuff like that. Right. So as we know, Charles Taylor was he was a very, very, tough guy who didn't take any mess from anyone, and he was a rebel leader in Liberia and then become the president. So, but I managed to survive that, spend some time in Liberia. And the first time when I went for the first tournament, I also met a Liberian kid called Aaron Kennedy, who is now in America. And me and him become such a good friend. And so when I went, I spent some time with him in Monrovia. We trained, and then I got some money. So I ended up in Ghana. And then back again to the guy who said if I needed to come there for school and tennis, I should consider that. So I went to Accra, spent some time with him, and he brought me back to the Winneba where we had the tournament. So I met again with Coach Noah, and then we went back to Accra at his, and he said to me, would you want to stay here in Accra in the city with me, or would you want to prefer to stay in Winneba where you did the tournament in the sports college there and train there? So I said, I want to go to the sports college because the place is quiet. It's a university and I can study there. And then plus you got 8 tennis courts just outside your room.
Wow.
And you got a wall which is like 15, 20 foot high. And then I like Coach Noah as well. The city life was too busy and, I didn't want to live in the middle of the city. So, and then, so they arranged it and they dropped me to Coach Noah, and it became like my dad, my mentor, my coach, my guru, my superhero.
Wow. And
he was a lecturer, so I was studying at the same time and then playing tennis. I met a lot of great Ghanaian athletes. Michael Essien, the former player for Chelsea, was there, and he was training there. Blimey. But we didn't know at that time he's going to be what he ended up becoming. No. All the heavyweight boxers for Ghana were there. And that year, the women team that went to the World Cup, they were there. They called them the Black Queen. So I was there with all of them. In fact, the goalkeeper at that time, we spent a lot of time talking about Sierra Leone. And then the Ghanaian goalkeeper, his name was Samir Ajayi, so he got the same name as me. And we become such a good friend. He was next door to me, so every evening we would sit and talk. He was a very quiet guy. I was the only one. In fact, people used to say, how come he's the only one that he wants to talk to? Because this guy, once he finished practice, he go to his room. He's very quiet. Right. And then I saw him in the World Cup with Ghana and Tem. I said, oh, yeah, that's my friend. And, so I met a lot of great athletes in that place, boxers. We all used to have great time at night. And after some years, And so I went back to visit in Sierra Leone and then came back to Ghana, and then I met with the Gambian tennis president. So what happened is in the year 2000, I finished my own ITF tournament, so I was 18. After I played again, I continued competing in Ghana, Togo, and Nigeria within the side whilst I was training in Ghana and studying. So, and then in 2000, the junior under 14 team came from Gambia, so they had the under 14 tournament. So, and then coach said, "Oh, do you want to help with this?" I said, "I can help." So I started helping. So these two Gambian players, they came, and I saw them on the court, the practice on the first day, second day, and then I went over and said, "Where is your coach?" And they said, "Oh, we didn't come with a coach, and because our coach is gone for conference in South Africa, and but we had the tennis president with us, so he's in the room sleeping." Yeah. So anyway, and they said, so I said, "Okay, well, I can train with you guys if you want to." So and then I started training them. I was hitting with them, helping them what to do. And they were so super excited. So they went to tell the tennis president and say, "Oh, we've met this guy from Sierra Leone. He's been helping." So I didn't see the tennis president till about 4 or 5 days later. He was he was an old guy, and he's not a coach, but he was just there because somebody needs to be with the kids. So anyway, and by the time the tournament finished, those kids become like I was their coach. I was their your older brother.
Right. Okay.
So every morning they find me. They knock on my door. Afternoon, evening, I was with them. And then the tennis president left me a letter, and he said, "Look, thank you so much for helping us. And these kids have done really well. You're very good with them." Few times he actually came and watched me training with them. And he said, "Would you consider coming to the Gambia to help us when you're not competing?" So I said, "I will see about it. If I have time, I will come over." I say, "Yeah, 2-3 months. I'm sure you will do good with the players there. They will like you and will give you a place to stay." And so that was it. And I went back to Sierra Leone in 2000, end of 2000. And things were a bit tough for me in Ghana. So I decided, okay, I will give this guy a ring and see if I can go to Gambia and do some stuff, get some money, and then play some futures. Now, the futures, you have the ATP top level, and then you have challenges, and then you have the futures. So the futures is where you start playing to get your world ranking in the men's tennis in the senior division.
Okay.
And then, so they are really tough. The futures are really tough because that's a professional level. And so Senegal hosts some of the first, future tournaments. So I said, well, Gambia is in Senegal, so it would be good for me to be there. If I got some money, I'll just go over to Senegal and then start competing in the futures. So that's what I did. And again, I struggled to get to Gambia. I even went to prison. And that is in the book because I went to Gambia after traveling by road and lose my money and all kinds of stuff. And I was struggling because I didn't have enough money to fly, because flying in Africa is more expensive than sometimes flying. Let's say if I was to fly to Sierra Leone, maybe it will cost me £600-700. Sometimes just to fly between Sierra Leone and another country in Africa, which is like 45-minute flight, will cost you like $1,000.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, so it's one of those bizarre things
Yeah.
because there aren't many flights, and this company, they take so much advantage, and it's only the rich people that really travel. So this kind of stuff. So I didn't have that kind of money. Decided to go by road, and then by road again, I struggled. Got to Gambia, and the border was open, so I took a taxi, and they took me straight to the second city, a place called Basse, Basse.
Right.
And so when I went to Basse, I went to the immigration and said to the guy, "Where can I stamp my passport? Because I'm here. I got an invitation to come and do tennis with the Gambia Tennis Association." So the immigration officer said to me, "How did you get to Gambia?" I said, "What do you mean, how did I get to Gambia? I get here by car.
Yeah.
I took a taxi from this place in Senegal, and they asked me to come here." He said, "Well, how did you cross the border?" I said, "I don't know where the border is, sir. That's why I'm here in the immigration." So pick my bag up, pick my passport, stamp it, refuse, and then they took me to jail.
Wow.
And the guy said, "Well, you've entered Gambia illegally." And then I said to the guy, "But I'm a West African citizen.
Yeah.
Because in West Africa, we have a free border, right?" And he said, "My friend, you're going to be there." So Saturday night, they put me in prison. Sunday morning, they put me in a van and my bag, give me my passport, refuse, and they deport me to Senegal. So whilst I was in Senegal, I stayed there for a week with a Sierra Leonean guy. And I said, look, I need to go. But the problem I had at that time is contacting the tennis president. Even though I have a letter, the guys didn't believe the letter. They thought I forged it because they took the number on the letter. They were calling the tennis president. But unfortunately, for me, the tennis president has gone to South Africa on a meeting. So he live on his own in his house. And those days it's only house phone.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So the whole day the guys have been ringing the phone and it's not ringing. The immigration officer say, look, even give us a fake phone. Nobody answer the phone. And Gambian people don't behave like this. So anyway, so they threw me out and I was ringing. I didn't know he's gone on this. He didn't know where I was because they sent a letter for me, say, I'll be there. I'm coming by road and stuff like this. So anyway, and then the guy who was a Sierra Leonean who lives in Senegal, he was doing business. He looked after me. I stayed in his house because I didn't have money. So one day, a week after, I said, okay, I'll put you in a car here. Go back to the refugee camp in Basse. Register as a refugee, and then they will help you out until you get in contact with the tennis president. So that's what I did. I walked for 12 hours in the desert.
Wow.
12 hours by foot. And then I got to the refugee camp. And so the guy, they took me, I become a refugee. And then 3 days later, they gave me somebody and said, okay, you go to the immigration, we're going to register you as a refugee and then get your papers and then we can sort your problem out. Took me to the immigration. The same guy who deported me was there. And when he saw me, he said, you come back to the Gambia? I said, how dare you? He said, I'm going to put you in jail. I'm going to take you to court and you're going to spend time in prison. I thought this guy was joking. The guy who they sent me with, he talked and said, no, the guy said, please don't talk to me. And then they threw me in prison. I was there for a few weeks.
Wow.
So the reason why I was in prison, this is a small cell where it was more than 12 of us. You can't sleep because there's no space. You can't lie down. You can't stand up because the ceiling was low. And everything you did in the corner there's a corner where you do your wee-wee. It's stung. There's so much mosquito and you got one meal a day if you're lucky. And I didn't know anybody in that city.
Yeah, no.
So here I am and thinking to myself, oh my God, would you guys just try and find a tennis president for me because I'm sick and tired with this. And I have my passport at that time. They've seen where I travel. I got all the letters. I got photographs to show them, say, look, this is me. I play tennis for Sierra Leone. I'm only coming to actually help your Gambian tennis players because they asked me to. They wouldn't want to know. The guy didn't even know that they play tennis in the Gambia. In fact, he thought I was making a joke.
Right.
And So anyway, I spent a few weeks and then we were so hungry at one time. So the guys who they took me there, they went and complained to the UN. So the UN has to come and they see our condition. So they told them immediately they have to release us on the human rights kind of stuff. And so we were released. And then... so I stayed in Basse until finally we got hold of the tennis president. When we told him what happened, and he's a lawyer, he was ready to go wild.
Right.
And he was ready to go really wild. So fortunately for me, after 4 weeks, and there was a minister of interior actually was coming to that city from Gambia. So the tennis president asked him to get me. And when he came and they introduced me to him, and he looked at my condition. He went to the immigration and all I could hear is arguing, going how he's going to deal with all these people in the immigration to put somebody like myself. It's a shame to the Gambia. It's a shame to the people. How can you look at him? He's an innocent kid. He's coming to help us. So it turned out really good. And I made some good friends around as well. So out of that struggle, I find myself... That day, I was in a 6-7 convoy vehicle with this minister, and they brought me all the way to the city. And, so a few years in 2001, I lived in the Gambia, training, competing. So I never left the Gambia until I met my kid's mom in 2001.
Right.
So, we fall in love for each other. Whilst I was there helping and competing. And then we end up getting married in 2003.
Right.
So we got married. And then in 2004, I got my first visa to come to England. And that was in May 2004. May 25th, I first arrived in London, Gatwick. And so, yeah, so I came and I stayed in Southport after a week in London, came to Southport. But in fact, my first impression of Southport, it was so dull.
Really?
I think to myself, there is no way I'm going to live here.
What time of year was this when you
It was
came?
in May.
It was in May. Right,
And I was absolutely freezing cold to start off with. So I can remember asking my kids' mom, when is the summer? He said, well, this is the summer.
That's a slap in the face, isn't it?
If this is your summer, I really don't want to see what your winter is like.
Yeah.
But you know, so after, and then in September, I was like, I couldn't wait to get back to Africa.
Take me back.
Take me back. I left, and then I went back, and she said, "Well, we were married. You got to come back to England because she has been over 25 times to see me during our, relationship." So I decided, well, yeah, I got to come back. So I came back in November 2004, and they gave me 2 years visa when I went, and so I found myself in Southport 2005. My twin daughters were born in Ormskirk, so they're 17 now. Last week they turned 17. Goodness me, we're getting old. So ever since I've been in Southport, I've loved Southport. I got used to it, and as they always say, the rest is history. And then I competed until 2007 when I played the All-African game for Sierra Leone and in Algeria, which is in North Africa. So there I was selected to be the flag bearer for my country.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I could remember going through the stadium. There was over 60,000 people, 6,000 athletes, officials. And, the open ceremony was like the Olympics. It was really massive. Because this time Africa has really picked up with all the sporting events, and there was 26 discipline athletes from all over the continent: marathon runners, swimmers, taekwondo, football, tennis, you name it. So, and I was chosen to be the flag bearer for my country. Okay. And I could remember going through the tunnel, and it was me and my tennis president, because the Sierra Leone contingent, they were late to come. But when they announced, Sierra Leone, it was so well organized. I'm talking about the open ceremony itself. And we got into the stadium, and I'm holding on to my country flag, and I'm looking around the stadium, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, like, how did I end up here? Yeah. With the emotions, I look into the sky, and I was thinking about Ali Mami, how grateful and appreciative and happy he will be in heaven. So that was really good. Great memories, and I got few photos of that. And then after 2007, tennis is expensive. I've trained a lot in England here. I was training with a former British player called Ken Skopsky, and he just retired. In fact, this year he retired in Wimbledon. He's now coaching here in Liverpool. He achieved so much. His brother, Neil Skopsky, is the world number one now in doubles. And, so I grew up with these guys. And then so I decided, well, I'm going to become a coach. So in 2006, actually, I got my first coaching qualification with the PTR, which is the Professional Tennis Registry. And then I become an LTA coach actually in 2009. And I started working as a coach. And that same year, 2009, I started traveling internationally with a British player called Alex Sendigea, who was also from Liverpool. Great player, top 100 junior, and played all the Grand Slam junior, went to America in college, and he's still playing, still competing today. And so I've met, my life. I've gone on to achieve so many great things in tennis. Yeah, I've hit with ATP players, WTA players like Kaya Kanepi from Estonia. She's been twice quarterfinalist at Wimbledon. In fact, she's been quarterfinal in all the Grand Slam, top 15 in the world. She's a good friend of mine. Yeah. And I've also hit with Andrew Rublev, who is currently number 6. He's a friend of mine. We met at the Liverpool International. And Michael Russell from America, and Alexander Candansu from Romania. She's a WTA player. Norwegian number 1, Melanie Stoke. So many good players I've hit with and been friend with. In the legend side, I've met with Virginia Wade, and we become friends. Great Virginia Wade. So she's a good friend of mine. And when she comes to the Liverpool, and she was one of the people actually who was motivated me to write my story, because I remember training with Virginia in Liverpool, and we finished training. Both me and her, we sat on the tennis court. We're talking about life. I could remember myself say, wow, as a kid growing up in Sierra Leone, the rich people used to bring tennis magazine, which was like a year old, and I used to read about Virginia and all these people. And here I am, sat in all city, my favorite city, Liverpool, sat with one of the legend of our sport, talking and said, this is surreal. And then I met Mansour Barami. For a few years, we were there. We worked together at the Liverpool International while he's there. And me and him, we were in Norway together as well. Wow. And then last year I was with Pat Cash, who's a friend of mine. In fact, we message each other every 2 weeks or so. And then Pat Cash is working with a lady who was the Chinese number one, Wan Kuan.
Right.
So she also, I've known her for a few years because she was working with a former 8 times Grand Slam champion, late Peter McNamara from Australia. So Peter McNamara was a friend of mine as well. So that's how I met Wan Kuan.
Yeah.
And now Pat Cash is coaching her. So we met when I brought Elijah from America, the kid who I travel with. So life has been good. So currently I'm working with a player called Elijah Poritsky. He's made his first ATP points. So, he's a great kid. We've been working together for 6 years. We've traveled all over the world, South America, Canada, so many states in the US and all over Europe, Eastern Europe, Europe, France, Germany, wherever. And this year he was here with me to compete at the Liverpool International. So I've met great legend, and tennis has taken me all over the world. I've been to over 90 countries worldwide.
It's incredible.
And I'm telling my stories. And also I run a foundation used to be called Max and Sam Tennis Foundation. And then Max, by the way, is the son of former Liverpool skipper Phil Thompson. So we formed the foundation together many years ago in 2008. And then I changed the name to Samjalo Sport Foundation, but now we've changed it to Anglo-African Sports Education Trust, which we help children in many countries in Africa, about 15 countries, in education and to get into tennis, stay positive. And I do a lot of motivational speaking. And last year I also went to 10 different countries by road. And then I did 10,000 miles, which was crazy.
Wow.
For over 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And did tennis, motivational speaking, and all kinds of stuff we did to help the children and community to stay away from trouble, knife crime, gun crime, drugs, and to take education seriously. And then in 2020, I won I was one of the winners of the prestigious BBC Award, which is an award they usually give to 3 people every year. So I was contacted by BBC because I did a documentary with BBC World Service Radio, and the Liverpool Echo newspaper picked my story up. And then when my book was launched in 2019, so that helped me to be nominated for the award, and then end up being one of the winners, which is it's a very big award.
Yeah.
And BBC did short documentary of us, all the winners and stuff like that. And then this year, with another charity that I volunteer with, which is run by Robin Baines, who's a MBE. Robin Bain is like my father figure here, my everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so this year we won also the prestigious Queen's Voluntary Service Award, which is like the MBE for charity. So to be part of these things, and so many other stuff has happened, launching my book and being part of the BBC Sunday Morning Live has done a documentary for me. I was on the BBC Saturday Live show with Faye Ripley, the lady in the, what did they call the program, and Cold Feet.
Oh, yeah.
And TV series. And then Dr. Zoe Williams. She was known as Amazon in the Gladiator second series. She's a very fit lady. Yeah. So, and then with another very good lady, old lady, she's called Christabel Carlisle.
Right.
So she was known as the lady in the mini. She was doing racing with men, back in the days. So I've been around some good people, and, like I said, and then my autobiography, How Tennis Saved My Life, Play Tennis Not War, was released in 2019. And now this year I've got my new book, which is titled Can't Break the African Spirit, and which will be launched in January 2023, but people can pre-order that in Amazon and stuff. So a lot has happened, and my kids are growing. I'm keeping healthy. I'm doing my foundation work, my tennis, traveling around the world, and now I've been a TED speaker 2019. I've been 2 times TED speaker, and one during the lockdown for a university in Tunisia. And now I'm doing public speaking all over the place. So here I am.
Yeah. It's one hell of a journey.
Yes.
It's amazing, obviously, from where you've come from to where you are now. You've achieved some amazing greatness.
Yeah.
And then the sport tennis has truly impacted you and let you see the world. And
yeah.
It's just amazing now that you play professionally in that sport. You now coach other people, and now you inspire other people through your own journey. And
yes.
it's truly empowering, and the things you achieve in the awards, the things you've done absolutely incredible, haven't you? It's truly inspiring for me, for anyone.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So we'll ask you a few cheeky questions now.
Yep.
Put you a little bit on the spot.
Yeah.
So looking back after everything that we've just gone through here and what you've been through, if there's one thing that you had the power to change in your whole life,
yeah,
what would it be and why?
Hate.
Hate.
Yeah, when people hate each other for either their race, their gender, what people choose to be, and when people hate each other because they're different nationality, different color, different religion, I would change that. Mm-hmm. And what would I do is bring more love people so we love each other more. The reason for that is because the word hate has contributed to people taking their own life. Because when somebody hates you for what you are, so many people commit suicide. We talk about mental issues. There's so many people who are isolated because of hate.
Yeah.
That they can't speak about this, that they're going through a mental struggle and emotional struggle. And through hate, when I saw in the world that when people become hateful, they lost empathy. And that means they don't care what kind of punishment they give to other people, innocent people. So I think hate is one of hating other people for who they are. If I was to change anything, that's one thing I would change, that we love more, we care more, and then don't hate anybody. If people, whatever gender, today we have everything going on in the world, whatever people choose to be, as long as they're not inflicting pain and suffering on the lives of other people, just move on. And I always said as a joke, different colors make a great, scenery, great,
Yeah, it's true.
So different religion make us better people because everybody come from a different background, different culture, different beliefs. And I don't think anyone's beliefs or color or race, nationality should create a problem for us. So for me, hate is something I would change. Love is something I will replace it with.
Incredible. Amazing. I think you're bob on that. I think that's keeping an open mind as well, isn't it? I think a lot of people tend to be quite close-minded.
Yeah.
So when something different comes along, they don't like it.
Yeah.
And they attack that with negativity.
Yeah.
So keeping an open mind is very important.
Yeah.
So I love
Absolutely.
that. Great response. So completely off topic now. This is what I've asked everyone on here so far. So food. I loved because food is a big passion in my life. So obviously, coming from where you've been from to the point where you probably question where each meal was coming from. Let's be layman terms there.
Yeah.
To now to where you're in a completely different zone.
Yeah.
Are you a foodie? Are you a big lover of food?
I'm very, very fussy. In fact, only till recently people start chucking food to me because, for example, Elijah I travel with, I can remember the mom when we met. What I eat rice. I used to eat rice and fish, rice and chicken only for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Wow. Okay.
And people used to say, "Why would you do that?" I said, "But look at me,
Take care of yourself.
It works, And in Sierra Leone, and the reason why I eat a lot of rice, or Sierra Leoneans eat rice, is because when I come from a very extreme poor family, so we used to have one meal a day. So rice lasts for more than 6 hours in your system. It stuffs you up, lot of carbohydrates. So you just drink water, rice and beans, you just keep you going. So you have carbohydrates and protein. And so we got used to that. So we eat that in the morning when we have some. Mm-hmm. So I will go to school not bother about being hungry. And I have enough energy to run, come back, play tennis. If you're lucky to have another meal in the evening, then here you go. So rice become my thing. And so ever since growing up, rice is my thing because 90% of national food in Sierra Leone, staple food is rice. So for me, rice, anywhere I am, I can't go more than 2 days without rice. Otherwise, you don't want to see me get angry. I'm hungry and hungry at the same time. No, but rice for me is good. Rice and fish is my favorite food. Rice and chicken also is my favorite food. But like I said to you before offline, that I tend to cut down sometime the meat and all this kind of stuff and just eat rice and vegetable sauce, peanut butter sauce, whatever I can cook. So for me, rice, number one.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I want to dive a little more into your like passions and interests now. Obviously, other than tennis, we know you've done a bit of martial arts in your past.
Yeah.
We've spoken briefly. You got a bit of an interest in bodybuilding and things like that. You're a very in shape individual. If you want to expand a little further on that.
Yes. When I was a kid growing up, martial arts, I had few opportunity to see some movie of Bruce Lee and a guy called Bolo Yeung. Most kids, so they won't remember who this guy was. He's in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. Was the biggest bodybuilding martial artist I've ever seen. I think some people never used to think that this guy was a really good martial artist. So Bolo Yeung was somebody I saw. And then also I love martial arts from being a kid when I had the first opportunity to start watching this kind of movie. So there was a guy called Med Van Damme. So Van Damme obviously is Jean-Claude Van Damme. So people used to take his name because when you watch Universal Soldier, you watch Bloodsport, all this kind of movie. And people love Van Damme because he was also a natural martial artist who worked really hard. So Med Van Damme was a drill sergeant in the Sierra Leone Army.
All right.
So he lived in our area. So he used to come every evening after work. He decided he's going to come and introduce himself to us, and then he started teaching us karate, Shotokan karate. So this guy will come from work in his military full uniform and then put his AK-47 on the side. And here he is. He's a proper martial art karate instructor, and he used to fight for the Sierra Leone national team as well in karate. So he would come and teach us. But what I noticed was he was paying more attention to me than any of the other kids.
Right.
And he used to even threaten me and say, look, Jalo, if I ever see you do this, you do that, you even smoke weed or take anything, I'll deal with you seriously. And I used to be so afraid of him.
Really?
Oh, yes. And sometimes when we miss, let's say you miss a punch, you practice in kata and then you miss the kata, and he will let you do like 100 push-up.
Yeah.
And then you reach a point where like 100 push-up, come on, my grandma could do the 200, 300. And then you start doing so many push-up and we become stronger and stronger because Sierra Leone was a rough place. But I find out in my life that this guy was like a guardian angel as well who come because he was so focused on me. And he said, I like you because you're serious, you want to learn, you do things. So I grew up doing karate. And then when I moved to Ghana, my Coach Noah, is a national taekwondo fighter and an instructor.
No way.
So I switched from karate and I started doing taekwondo, which I did for years and years and got my black belt. And then also I started doing kung fu and I did all kind of things. And then when I moved to England, I actually did some jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And then so I'm like a believer of Bruce Lee, that if you want to know more about martial arts, you learn other martial arts. So you learn about people's culture and different style, and then you can help to add to your own style. So did a lot of nunchaku, as we say in Sierra Leone, and then bow staff. We used to practice a lot of that, and street fight, all kinds of hand combat. Like you saw, I was showing you with the photograph that we practice 4 hours a day and stuff like that. So I love martial arts. In fact, if you wasn't just doing tennis, I would have just probably go to the Olympic and do taekwondo and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. And bodybuilding, you mentioned as well. After I finished tennis, competing in tennis, I have nothing else to do because prior to that, I never went to gym. Prior to me in 2007, I never ever go to gym. All I was doing is 1,000 push-up in the morning, 600 to 1,000 sit-up, and then I practiced my martial art. That was my fitness. And then I would do skipping for like 20 minutes and this kind of thing. And then I would stretch for like 15, 20, sometimes half an hour. I would stretch just to keep my flexibility. Not now. All these flexibility things are going. I got too much muscle now, I think, sometimes. Yeah. But I love bodybuilding. I follow all the bodybuilders. I could name you 50 great bodybuilder off my head. Even the female bodybuilder. I follow the Olympia. In fact, 2018, I was in Las Vegas to watch the Mr. Olympia.
Oh,
yes, I was there. I was there. In fact, I was there when when Phil Heath lost to late Sean Roden because he passed away, and things like that. We have some great bodybuilders who have passed away recently, including Cedric McMillan, who's one of my favorites, and then he just died from heart attack and stuff. So I follow bodybuilding, but I've always keep it natural. I weigh 17 and a half stone, which sounded like a lot of weight.
For your height, though.
But I'm 6'2", so and I train naturally. Like I said, I don't even take protein, none of this kind of stuff. And not because I don't like them, I don't think they work, because I just eat rice and natural food, and I got great genetic. But as you can see, I work a lot. I love to work hard. Like this morning, 6 o'clock, I went there and I did my legs so hard, and then went and played 2.5 hour tennis. Christ. To the point where I'm now walking out of my car. I'm limping a bit, but I love it.
You're a bit tender.
Yeah. So I love bodybuilding, and I can say to everybody who's out there, if you're listening to this, if you go to the gym, it's a great way to kill stress. It's a great way to get out of your comfort, get out of your problems and things. Plus, also, you're doing yourself a whole lot good, keeping your body in shape. I mean, I'm looking at you with your shape and your arms and things like that. And I watch you doing leg training in the gym, and I always say to you, we still haven't done that leg session yet.
We'll get that booked in.
We'll get that booked in. So I love it, and I've made some of the best friends in the gym. So, so the gym is like my second home.
That's good. It's a place with like-minded individuals, isn't it? And I think with your work ethic and things, that's why you've got the body you built, your success in life, your coaching, the motivation. Because of your work ethic that you've got, because of the things you've been through, makes you different to everyone else. And it's truly incredible.
Yeah.
Super. So we'll begin to wrap up a bit there.
Yeah.
So. Is there anything, I'd like to spin the coin a little bit here. So is there anything today that I didn't ask you that you wish I had have asked you?
Well, there's a lot of stuff, like I said, my book is there. People can read that and get the other bits. But I think we cover a lot of the areas, things, but all I can say is, for me, if I would advise people, is that let's love more, care more, and let's try and understand each other more, because this world is our home. This world doesn't belong to anyone else. It belongs to all of us. And it doesn't matter whether you're from Africa, from Asia, from Europe, from America. No one is superior to others. And we're just human beings. If an asteroid is coming to hit this earth today, they're not going to say, this is going to fall on black people or Muslim people or whatever people or white people. It's going to fall on humanity. And we're all in it together. It sometimes surprised me that only when we're in trouble that we come together as human beings, but when things are normal, certain people make life difficult for others, So let's love and care more. That would be the thing I would love to talk more about. That I got family now, which people laugh at me. I got family here in England. I got my best friends are in England. And, and also just to mention to people that I become a British citizen, many, many years ago. And I travel on a British passport, and I got my Sierra Leonean passport still. But I'm so thankful because Great Britain has given me a lot of opportunity. Everywhere I go, people see a British passport. They're so respectful. And to see that you come from England. The narration that people think that people really hate British people, I don't know where they get this thing from. Right. Because everywhere I've been to Middle East, America, Asia, you talk, and first of all, when I never tell people I come from Southport, not because I don't want to talk about Southport, because when you're in America or other place, you come from Southport, they go, where is that?
Where's that? Yeah.
So I always tell them I'm from Liverpool. They go, the Beatles. Oh, yes. And even in Eastern Europe, when I was in places like Bulgaria and Serbia and other places, and you mention Liverpool, they mention the Beatles. The Russian people, they love British music. They love, like what's happening in Ukraine today. It's not just the Ukrainians suffering, the Russians are suffering. Ukrainians are suffering. We shouldn't go through this, and I think diplomatically we have smart people enough to come together and make peace and make this world a better place, because only innocent people that suffered. So let's love more, care more, and respect each other's culture and differences, and let's just move on.
Super, thank you, Sam. So again, I do truly appreciate you taking time out and being here today. And sharing your incredible story with us. I don't like to call it a story; it's a life experience, isn't it? As what I've said before.
Yeah.
Because the story implies that it wasn't real. And
Yeah.
by God, it was real.
Yeah.
You've been through a hell of a lot, and
Yeah.
it's grounding, and it's amazing for my listeners to be able to hear this. And so as we know, Sam's book is on. You can get it on Amazon, etc.
Yeah.
So I'll be posting links and all the social media stuff on my pages, so you can follow Sam and see what he's up to. He did a lot of motivational talks. I think I've been lucky to be to one myself. Truly incredible experience. Truly incredible individual. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. So just thank you again, Sam.
Thank you so much, Alan. I've enjoyed it, and I hope the listeners will enjoy it. Thank you so much.
And we'll have you we'll have another one coming soon. Jumping into his next book. Jumping a little bit more into mental health. And yeah, that's a wrap.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys soon.